Holyoke Mayor Alex Morse surprised many political observers when he announced his intention to run for Congress in the First Congressional District. He's challenging longtime Springfield Congressman Richard Neal.
I've been thinking about this for the past several months. I think a lot of Americans, a lot of people here in Western Mass, particularly after the 2016 election and again after the midterm election in 2018, really had to wonder as our democracy is, in my opinion, dying before our eyes, how can we get more involved? And when you look at this moment in time in our country, what's happening here in Western Mass and across our state, I think there's an urgency to this moment that had really called me to take a step in this direction. I've been mayor now in Holyoke nearly 8 years, and I think we've made a lot of progress on a number of fronts and issues. And I ran 8 years ago because I felt like people had quietly given up on Holyoke and resigned themselves to the fact that our best days were behind us. And there were people and places and neighborhoods that historically felt excluded, left out and left behind by city government. People lost faith that government can be a force for good in their lives. And when I look at the issues and outcomes and challenges of people and families here in Western Mass, there are still a lot of places, a lot of cities and towns and communities that feel left out and left behind. And so the reasons I ran 8 years ago for mayor are many of the same reasons I'm running for Congress today.
Did the success of some of the younger progressives in your party, for example, Ayanna Pressley defeating Mike Capuano last November, did their success influence your decision to decide to run as well?
I think personally it was certainly an inspiration to see candidates that were guided by principles and values in going up against entrenched incumbents that had been in office for decades, and the conventional wisdom being wait your turn. And I know exactly what that feels like. People told me to wait my turn when I ran for mayor as a 21-year-old back in 2011. And to see folks like Ayanna Pressley defy the odds, be vastly outspent, but run a campaign that inspired thousands of new voters to participate in that process was certainly an inspiration for me. And the conventional wisdom is that a member of Congress is entitled to their seat for as long as they seek to be there. But it's reminding people here in Western Mass and across our country that they have 2-year terms. They're up every 2 years, and it's up to the people, not our incumbent members of Congress, when their time is up.
Well, you're what, 30 years old?
Yeah.
You're running against Richard Neal, who's been in Congress for 30 years, as long as you've been here. He's chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, now one of the most powerful positions in Washington. He's got 30 years experience in Congress for Western Massachusetts. You're going up an entrenched, well-financed incumbent. Very, very difficult task. You see this as a big uphill fight for you?
Yeah, it's certainly a challenge, and I wouldn't have launched this campaign if I didn't know that there was a pathway to victory here with the right campaign. And I'm prepared to work as hard as possible over the next 14 months to build the grassroots movement and campaign that really needs to be formed to be successful next September in 2020. And he certainly has experience and power, and he certainly knows how Washington works. But I want to change how Washington works because I don't think it's working for the people here in Western Mass. And I know power comes with being chair of Ways and Means, but when you look at outcomes in Western Mass around education and transportation, the opioid epidemic, the issues challenging our small rural towns in Franklin County and throughout the Berkshires and the hill towns, it's been hard for people to make the connection between a senior member of Congress and what it's actually meant for families that are struggling to put food on the table, to pay their bills, to get health insurance, to get access to a treatment facility for themselves or a family member. And so I want to go to Washington to actually represent people and take the concerns and challenges people have to D.C.
Do you feel Congressman Neal has not acted aggressively enough, as many progressives in the party have, with regard, for example, to asking for President Trump's tax returns? Do you feel he's kind of slow-walked that issue, or do you feel he's proceeded, as he says, very judiciously to make sure he had all his I's dotted and his T's crossed from a legal point of view?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it was slow-walked, certainly. I will say that this one issue alone isn't the reason for my candidacy. I think his slow walking here is just emblematic of his slow walking on a number of issues and the need to really convince him to embrace policies that will actually move the needle and change outcomes for people here in Western Mass. So timing was certainly an issue. The Democrats took back the House in November, and it took at least 6 months even to pen a letter asking for the returns in the first place, which again makes it more difficult for us to access that and get a decision from perhaps the Supreme Court before the 2020 election. So I think there was definitely an opportunity missed there, and we also see the New York State making available his New York State tax returns, the president's, and the congressman again failing to seize that opportunity so that the American people can get that information and see the truth.
Well, you've been in politics long enough to know that fundraising obviously is a big factor in an election like this. The congressman has, by all estimates, about $4 million in his political war chest at this point. Yeah. You certainly have a fraction of that at best. How are you going to compete with that kind of power and money in getting your message out?
Yeah, and I appreciate you asking, because I think that's what Americans and people here in Western Mass are fed up with, is the influence of money in politics. And I made it very clear on my first day as a candidate that I wouldn't take a single dime from any corporate PACs or special interests. And the vast majority of Congressman Neal's money comes from corporations, and that's Wall Street, big pharma, fossil fuel companies. And so when I go to Washington and take a vote, I never want to wonder who I'm taking that vote for, because the only special interest I'll have is the people here in the district. And the winner of this campaign, this election, will not be the candidate who can spend the most money or raise the most money. It'll be the candidate that has a message and a set of values and convictions and principles that will deliver for people here in Western Mass. And so we're not taking a single city or town for granted. All 87 cities and towns will see the Alex Morse for Congress campaign knocking on people's doors, showing up in kitchens and living rooms, and having those conversations. And that, frankly, is the only way to be a responsive member of Congress.
Can you tell us what kind of internal polling your campaign has done to assess your chances and what those results were?
We did go through an exploratory process, and I would just repeat what I said before, that I would not enter this race if I did not see a pathway to victory here with the right campaign and the right message. And I'm very proud of the progress we've made in Holyoke over the last 8 years. Not only did we defy the odds when folks said that a 21-year-old had no opportunity or chance to become mayor, but more importantly, we defied the odds when people said Holyoke's best days are behind us. We've improved the public schools. We've turned around downtown and revitalized it by many measures, made the city the safest it's been in decades. And on a smaller scale, I think what we've done in Holyoke serves as a roadmap for the district. And so I don't make these decisions lightly, but again, I think this moment in time we're in this country and the challenges that Western Mass faces have led me to make this decision.
You're mayor of Holyoke. You've got to maintain your duties as mayor, which is a full-time job. And yet, when you start campaigning for the First Congressional District, it is geographically an immense district, basically from here west all the way through the Berkshires, 87 cities and towns in that district. How are you going to be able to physically campaign in all those cities and towns and yet still be effective as a mayor?
Yeah. I will say that I love my job as mayor. I love the team that I work with each and every day, and I look forward to getting up every morning and going to City Hall and still immersing myself in the responsibilities that come with being mayor of the city. But I'm also incredibly excited to get out in each of these cities and towns and meet with people that I don't know and listen and learn about those challenges. Western Mass is such a beautiful area, and I'm just looking forward to getting out there and meeting and listening to people. But I have no doubt that we'll be able to balance the responsibilities of being mayor with the team I have in place, but also getting out there and listening and learning to the challenges of people elsewhere.
Last November, Congressman Neal had an opponent, Springfield attorney Tahira Amatal Wadud, and a progressive candidate talking about a lot of the issues you've referenced, and yet Congressman Neal won 70% of the vote in that election. Does a number like that concern you?
No, again, I think we're going to build a grassroots campaign in every single one of the 87 cities and towns throughout the district. There's such an opportunity here to expand the universe. There are so many people, like I said, when I ran for mayor back in 2011, that were just fed up with the political system, the political process. People are registered to vote, but maybe not voting, not registered to vote at all, or maybe just vote in the presidential elections. And so part of this campaign, too, is reminding people that your member of Congress matters, that they could actually be an incredibly powerful force for good in your life, but I think people have lost faith. And so this campaign is reminding people of your civic responsibility and duty, and looking at the voter turnout numbers. I mean, turnout has been abysmal, including in 2018 here in the First District. And so, again, spending time, not just in Holyoke and Springfield, but getting out to the hill towns and the rural parts of the district. And so that's what I'm most excited about, is listening and learning and getting to know new people.
One final question that is concerning President Trump in the impeachment question.
Yeah.
Given testimony by Robert Mueller before Congress, do you feel it's time for Congress to act and go forward with impeachment?
Absolutely. I think at the very least we need to begin and open up impeachment proceedings and have those hearings. This is an issue where the American people deserve to hear the truth, and if Congress isn't even willing to open up impeachment proceedings, to have those hearings, to get the truth to the American people, I think it does an incredible disservice to the American people and the people here in Western Mass. And this goes to my central core of there's an urgency to this moment. If this president doesn't merit impeachment proceedings, then I don't know what president will ever. And so that's what's important to me. And it's also indicative of the establishment, both on the Republican and Democratic side. People and parties being more worried about the politics of it, the political polling of it in the next election, where I and many others are more concerned about the principles and our values and making sure we uphold our constitutional obligation of the office.